Hello, everybody. How's it going? Can we get this? Can we get this a little bit louder? Someone help me with that. Anyone in the room? It's no, just me. All right. Oh, that's awesome. All right. At the main frame. I don't even know. I gotta like trace this cable, figure out which one it's connected to. Could be two. Oh, get out of here, Russ. Get out. Actually, come over here and make my mic hotter. Yeah, you figure it out. Wait, I have to top it down. Yeah. Oh no. No. Don't do that. Don't do that. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello. I'm just gonna. Was it this one? Okay, well now it's off and it sounds the same, and now it's off and it sounds the same. Okay. Okay. May or may not have been that one. May or may not have been that one. We're doing great work here. All right. Is it none of them? Is this just? Am I just talking? Hello, 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 hello. You know, I can just go with it. I'll just boom into the mic here. We'll be all right. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to a crash course in designing for virtual reality, which is also why laser pointers suck and that we can do better. So has anyone here just been in VR before of some kind? A lot of us. Anybody here made something for VR before? Okay, working on it. Welcome. Cool. So this is targeted at that cohort. So if you're interested in making things or curious about design, game design, or specifically design for virtual reality and game development, then I'm talking to you. Welcome. All right. I'm Hunter Dyer. I'm an assistant professor of immersive media at Chatham University in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So I teach this. This is just a lecture from my class, which is great. Didn't have to do a lot of prep. Just kind of a lot of copied and pasted my slides over. Great. No, no, he does, but you don't. I also am an adjunct professor at Carnegie Mellon University, where I do Unity. I've been doing Unity forever. I teach programming, teach game design. I teach upper level production courses where students make weird things, and I have to somehow help them with that. So I know a little bit about a lot of different things. You're at MAGFest. There's other talks at MAGFest. There's a VR in Education and Training panel talk, which is Saturday. State of Virtual Reality 2024 and beyond you might be interested in. I'm going to be speaking on those two. I won't be on these bottom two, but if you're here, they just seem like you should enjoy them. How to get into VR and Blender, which is near and dear to my heart. So if I see someone giving a talk on Blender, it's like, I love you. All right. There's also another panel later today, the Swag panel with this hot dog thing. I made a game called Hunter's Block Puzzles. I'm Hunter. It is perhaps the least polished game on the Swag. They're so good. Check the Swag out. It's amazing. And a few years ago, I made the Picross game. And I just lost all my connection. If anyone remember the Picross game? Yeah. Yeah, all right, yeah. All right, all of the slides for this are up online. You can download my slides. I'll also included a link to every video game I reference and a bunch of further concepts I reference. I have like 120 something slides here, and instead of deleting them, I'm just gonna like put them in front of you and then skip past, and then you can look it up later. Just so here's some exposure, but I might breeze past a few things. That's on purpose. This talk is in 4 parts. We're going to start with like what the point of designing for VR is anyway. Then we're going to talk about senses and how the body works and how we can design for that. Then I've got a hodgepodge toolkit, bat belt list of tools, design methodologies, and principles that you should steal and borrow and use. And finally, as promised, why laser pointers are a bad UX device for VR, in my opinion. All right. So let's get started real quick. What are we trying to do here anyway? Well, we're trying to do virtual reality experiences. This is from The Onion. It's not real. You are right now an experience designer. You are responsible for making an experience that another user has. If you ever see anything in a little white box in my slide corner, that just means that's a thing you can look up later. Cool. So you are all now, congratulations, you've just taken responsibility for like the inside of somebody else's brain. And if they punch their friend while they're in VR, that's a little bit your fault. Like it's their fault, and it's the friend's fault for going in the play space, but it's also your fault as a designer, because your players are leaving the safe way of playing into an unsafe way of playing, and you gotta make sure you afford them going goblin mode. So, like if a user throws up, yes, they should have stopped earlier, but two, you should have made it able for them to feel like they should stop when they're nauseous. So we're responsible for making VR good, and we're responsible for making it safe. But we only have certain tools to do so with. We have all sorts of tools. We have genre, we have expectations of the user that we can communicate. We don't control like the feeling of the carpet under their feet, but we are responsible for them moving their legs all around and not punching a wall. Genre is an interesting one, especially in VR, because we're so close to our senses. We can really go too far really easily. For example, I don't play horror games in VR. I don't sign up for that. And if I'm signing up for a game I want to play, which is probably sitting on my floor and building little roller coasters around me because it's great, I'm not signing up for any jump scares. I have an expectation, a contract I've made with the designers, which might be different than somebody else designing their 5 nights at something or other VR experience. So you need to really clearly communicate your expectations for the user. All right, so we want to make VR experiences good, which begs the question, what makes them good? So the first thing I did is, because I'm a dum-dum, I asked others, experts, I asked my students, and I got some interesting feedback. It's when, it's like, wow. Yeah, thank you. It's immersive. It's when I'm not thinking about my homework. Pretty good. I gave the homework. I want them to think about it like a little bit. When everything's natural, when everything's intuitive, when it has the magic sauce. Does that mean anything to anybody else? Because it doesn't mean much to me, but I like it. When I can play for longer than half an hour and my head doesn't hurt, that's a low bar. We can do better than that. And then I asked one student, what makes VR good? And they just went, hey, you know that one moment from Half-Life Alyx? And I was like, well, yeah, I do. Let's go on. All right, so that kind of helps us, but not really. We got like a word cloud. We could start building a definition out here. But let's steal from other fields. If my students didn't help me make a definition or make any insight here, let's steal from the field of narrative design and consider the suspension of disbelief. You do not need to convince the readers of your fanfic that they are actually there on the, I'm not going to finish that joke, that they're actually in the story. You just need to convince them enough that they can, not convince them, but they just let them buy into it, suspend their disbelief, and enjoy it. And we have the same sort of situation, but of our senses. We're not here to fool your users into thinking they're in like a different reality that you control. That is, sorry, 1990s movies, that's just like not the goal here. Okay, Lawnmower Man, look it up. Don't look it up right now, but later, look up Lawnmower Man. It's a weird one. So we can steal that from narrative design and consider, okay, so we're not just trying to make it convincing, but we're trying to do something for the user to let themselves be convinced. That's almost helpful. Next, we can steal from the field of game design. I think some people in this room might like video games. Yeah. So from psychology and the study of video game psychology, in the zone, flow state. If anyone's ever been in flow state, I play a lot of Tetris. I don't know how many hours I spend playing Tetris. I don't know how many hours I spend playing Rocket League, but it's a lot, and I don't know where I am anymore because I'm in the zone, right? The two concepts we're going to take from that is the melding together of action and consciousness, or said in a less weird way, what I call direct interaction. It's where the decisions that are going into my outputs, the way I'm reacting to an input, making a decision, giving an output, that decision is also the thing that I'm doing. which of course it is. Why wouldn't it be? Well, the thing is, I'm not going to move the mouse in order to move the cursor in order to find the X. I'm just thinking close. So the thing I'm thinking about is also the action I'm trying to complete. And VR is really, really good at getting us here. It's excellent at getting us here, and we should leverage these strengths. So a good VR experience is immersive. Thank you for coming to the talk. I'll be taking questions at the end. Okay. So suspension of disbelief of our senses gives us immersion. How willing, how able, how easy we can get into the experience, that's immersion. How real, natural, obvious. So that word cloud from earlier, this is just immersion, which means almost nothing, which generally tells me, ooh, there's probably more than one definition in here. I'm going to give you 3. I'm going to give you the fidelity of immersion, which is how real or how convincing someone is. It's high fidelity. The depth of immersion, how many multi-channel, how many different senses, how reinforced in different ways our illusions, our experiences are. And perhaps most importantly for us as designers, the ease of immersion. How quickly can I jump in and out? How do I need to strap on my VR treadmill harness and like spend 30 minutes getting warmed up and getting going? Or can I just pop in and enjoy it and I'm in the zone? And most VR experiences, you need a little bit of time to just like settle in and get warmed up. You know, no one beats their high score on the first Beat Saber run. Like you need to get in there. So a good VR experience is designed to do all of those things. Okay, great, thank you for coming. But that tells us our goal, that tells us our objective. But I gotta also mention it should also be fun and feel good to play. Yeah, and then you've all played a game that just like felt good. You know what I mean, so we're moving on. We do not need to simulate reality. We do not need to be convincing, but we do need to allow our users to suspend their disbelief and make it immersive. Great. So that's our goal. Immersion is the goal, and something about controlling the mind of our users so that they're having fun is our goal, which is game design and play. Welcome to part 2 of the talk. How do our eyes work? How do we see depth VR as a thing that lets us see in 3 whole dimensions, which is pretty wild. I love that many dimensions when I'm seeing. We have a lot of visual depth cues, more than just stereo, but let's start with stereo. We got 2 eyeballs. Most of us can see equally well out of both of them, and we need to figure out how they work. So your brain compares the difference between your stereo vision, looks at the differences, and says, that's great. Stereo, highly excellent. There's a virtual boy in the room right over there, but it has one of the eyeballs isn't working, and you don't have stereo out of it. And that's like the only depth cue the virtual boy has at its disposal. It doesn't do any of the things coming up after this slide. Stereo stops being effective at like 60, 80 feet or so. There's not that much of a difference. Your eyes aren't that far apart. But we got some tricks to help us with that. Next is convergence. Convergence is when you're focusing on different things. Your eyeball, when you go cross-eyed right in front of you, or you're parallel looking at infinitely far away. Yes, you can all do that thing. Then your brain knows the angle. The volume up a bit. Your brain knows the angle that your eyes are at, and it's like, oh, okay, I know how far away the thing that you're focused on is. Doesn't work for your periphery. Doesn't work for things coming into your field of vision, fast-moving things. But when you're focused on something, you get that. Exactly the same way, accommodation, that's the muscles squishing the lens of your eye. That's a technique, you can trust me, I'm a professor. We're squishing the lens of your eye in order to distort them, and we know how much we're doing that. You can kind of unfuzz your eyes a bit. You're flexing that muscle. If anyone ever sat in the back of their history class and made everything go blurry over and over again when they were bored, just me? Okay. That is a strong indicator. Accommodation and convergence are the things that VR was bad at for a long time. Like you go get in an old headset or Google Cardboard and it gave you a headache and you bounced off of VR because you're being asked to focus on one plane but the content's somewhere else and your eyes have a mismatch there. It stinks and it's bad. Give it another shot with some more modern hardware. Meta spent a lot of money buying a lens company to just solve the problem of those two depth cues. So give it another shot with some more recent tech, but it's still, some people will be more comfortable suspending their fact that their accommodation is annoying and giving them a headache than others. I actually get motion sickness pretty easily, and my students are in VR for like 15 hours, and I'm like, I go stop that. Like, that's not, you don't do that. Next, ground plane. This is weird because this is not like a thing from our brains or our eyeballs. This is just a thing in the world. It's the ground. It's the ground. We know what the ground is. It's underneath me all the time. When you don't have a ground plane, like when you're on a suspended roller coaster, pretty intense, pretty cool, pretty wild. When you're flying at the ground, you don't know. You have a hard time like judging how far away it is because we're not the normal my height above the ground that I am, that I'm used to my entire life. So suspended roller coasters are really effective. In VR, if you get the ground height wrong, you won't think, ooh, I'm sinking into the floor. You'll think, ooh, I'm short. So get it right. Or, manipulate it for effect, which is really what we want to do. All right, so ground plane, very important. Next, motion parallax, so important. This is not VR, but there is parallax here, which is things at different distances moving at different speeds, thanks to perspective, a concept you may have heard of, where things that are farther away from me appear smaller, and I can hold my hand out and I can squish all your heads, but I'm not actually doing that. That would be unprofessional. So I can show you this gibberish. This is nothing. This means nothing. There's nothing here. But wait for me to move it. Oh, it's a head. Oh, it's someone's head. Oh, now it's nothing again. So motion parallax. We're so good. Our brains are incredible at seeing things move and then determining where they are, especially if the thing that's moving is our heads. You ever try to look at something far away and you go uncle mode and you're just like, you sort of knock your head back and forth? You're just giving yourself motion parallax in order to see depth better. That's just, your brain's go for that. Dogs do a similar thing. They go sideways. That's an audio thing, but don't worry about it. Similar to parallax kinetic depth effect, just things in motion. You could probably tell me what these two things are, even though any one frame of this, I think it's a bear skull and the Venus de Milo. Oh, I spoiled it. But you knew that already because you can see and you can tell what they look like because we're so good at turning these two-dimensional things into three-dimensional shapes and understanding if they're moving. So that tells us as VR designers that we want the player to move their head around and not stand still, and we want stuff in our scene that has a strong silhouette. We want that to move as well. Ooh, spoilers coming up. Next, occlusion. So here is a large circle. Behind that circle, obviously, is a square. No, wait. Okay, hold on. Okay, so that's just three shapes on the screen, and they're all flat. Okay. So behind the circle is the square, and then behind that's the triangle. So we're using occlusion here, shapes that are covering up other shapes in front of you. I know that each row is sitting in front of the other row because you are occluding in front of them. So don't just lay everything out like a grid. Put things in the way of other things. Give yourself occlusion. I'm also using distance above horizon as a depth cue on this one, but moving on. We don't use that one in VR. The horizon comes with us in VR. So next, go into your game engine like Unity and hit the fog checkbox, and it's better now. Good job. Just a little bit. Just be tasteful. A little bit of fog. Atmospheric gradation, things lose contrast, and also air is blue. Yep, sure. Air is blue. So things that are far away are getting tinted by all the stuff in the air. And no, it's not. Air is blue, and I'm a professor, so you can quote me. And you can see it's being used in this image for Firewatch. That's pretty well known. And that's just a photo I took on a foggy day. Fog, super, super helpful for depth. Next, familiar size. Put things in the world and where you know what they are. Does anyone know who that is in the middle? That's Arnold Schwarzenegger. Oh my God. Yeah. He's standing next to Andre the Giant and Wilt Chamberlain on the set of the bad sequel to Conan. All right, come on. We know how tall humans are. That's just a thing. There's a lot of variation amongst humans, but we know how tall they are. So when I look at this photo, I know how tall Andre and Wilt should be, even though they are not that tall. So then okay, this person in the middle must be short, right? The image is lying to me. I love it so much. Anyway, put things in your scene. Put that little, anyone ever opened SketchUp? You got a little human figure in there? Yeah, two of you. Cool. Put things in your scene. Use OSHA to your advantage. Everyone knows how much a stair should rise and run. We all know how high a doorknob should be. We know how big a door frame should be because they're standards. So put the standards, copy and paste them into your VR experience so they match. Just don't just like drag and stretch out a cube. This is the game Cubism. This is a game that takes place in a void where none of what I just said helps at all. Oh, wait, look closer. There's an implied ground plane from the shadows being cast by an invisible light source, and on those shadows, fog. What? Yeah, good job, Thomas Van Buell, the designer of Cubism. All right, but we can do better than a void. You can just like put it in mixed reality and get all the depth cues of real life. Nice. I'm very excited about mixed reality because I don't have to work as hard. Great. Has anyone ever played Trombone Champ? Did you know that there's a VR port of Trombone Champ? It's called Trombone Champ Unflattened. It's so good. And I want to draw your attention to the fact that it kind of looks like it's snowing. There are dust motes. If you want another, add this to your game engine and make your VR experience better without trying very hard. Dust motes. Little floaty particles that are just there to give you parallax and to give you the sense of depth and scale of the scene. Also, this game is very silly and I love it. All right, here is Moss. It is a third-person platformer game at diorama scale. And Quill here is going to go behind a leaf. There's going to be occlusion there. They're going to go out around. In the next scene, they're immediately going to run behind a fern that you have to look around to see. There's a thing in your way. I have to move forward around it in order to see the character. And in doing so, I'm reestablishing depth using all of that motion and that head motion. So these levels in Moss are designed to make me not stand up, not spin around, not move, but just like get a little bit of leaning. I got to lean forward to grab that control. I got to move around. There's all sorts of leaves and grass stalks. What do you call a grass? We'll just go with foliage. There's all sorts of little bits of grass, little bits of foliage, fauna that are in the way in front of you that give you occlusion, and all sorts of tiny details at different distances. Oh, and in the background there's fog and atmospheric gradation and large things in the distance as well. So Moss does and Moss 2, the sequel's out, does a very effective job designing for depth. All right, next, that's vision. Next, audio. Everyone put your headphones on so I can do this part. Okay, nope, we're gonna skip audio. Sorry, I got some references for you to look up on the slides. I'm skipping it, sorry, I got a lot to cover. There's one thing I won't skip, which is giving it a source in your scene. Stop just playing it like normal music in your ears. Stop that. Take audio, put it somewhere so that when I move my head around, it's in the scene and I get all that reinforced. So binaural audio and reverb and time delay and stuff. Ooh, there's a thing you can look up later. Great, good job, cool. All right, haptics. Starship Home, a great mixed reality game. All the haptics were designed by Carson Custer, one of my graduates. So I take more credit than I deserve. So there's Kent Bai's podcast. There's a great talk where the designers and developers of Starship Home go into the weeds on it. But I'm also skipping haptics for time. Sorry, haptics are important, so do them. Great. Okay. Proprioception and kinesthetics. Excellent. Proprioception is your understanding of your own body. Do you all know where your limbs are? Good. Do you all know how hungry you are? Do you know your sense of balance, your sense of motion? All of that is proprioception, and a little bit more abstractly, that is your kinesthetics, your sense of your own movement. So games that design well for your understanding of your body and your understanding of your own position in your body, these are good games. It's Beat Saber. You know it's Beat Saber. We've all played Beat Saber. It's a great game. But you're not memorizing like, I'm going to do this. You just got that on lock. You're just in the flow state. You're taking advantage of all of that, like the whole history of humans and athletes and their ability to move. Good stuff. Let's leverage that. On the right here is from Valve's The Lab, which is an archery game. And to reload, you just reach behind your head, grab anywhere behind you, and there's just going to be an arrow there. And it feels amazing. Hey, how does a bow and arrow work? You just do it. Another really nice design trick in this archery game is that you begin, the bow is on the ground, and they don't know if the user is right or left-handed, but you just pick it up, and it starts on the ground. It doesn't start in your hand. There's no menu to switch hands. You just pick it up, and that's your hand you're going to use. So there's no tutorial. It's very clever. We like it. So body shortcuts. This comes from a talk called from the developers of Fantastic Contraption in 2016, talking about these shortcuts that I just mentioned around your body, your own understanding of your body, where you can grab and pull from. And in the talk, they basically called the shot that these are going to be standard in every game, and they're right. And I'm just here to reinforce that and say, yes, these are good, and they continue to be good. So put some inventory behind my head and around my hips. And that's really all we have with like only head tracking. But with more complex skeleton tracking, we can do a little bit more, like wrists and things. In proprioception, speed of movement is something we have that we don't have outside of VR. You know, you push a button, but now I can like push a button, which is good. Super hot, you all played super hot. So not just moving, but how fast you're moving and your own awareness of like that speed. Don't copy super hot, but do copy letting users have control over their own motions. Coming up next from Thomas Van Buell, the designer of Cubism, is Laser Dance. It's going to come out pretty soon. This is a game all about kinesthetics and your understanding of your body. You're just dodging lasers. This game rules. Oh yeah, do you want to play this? I do. Is my talk a little bit an ad for this game? Yeah, it is. It's great. I can't wait. It's called Laser Dance. Check it out. I don't know, eventually. 2025, maybe. Thanks. As designers, you want to encourage your users to move and to swing. You don't want to do teleportation spamming. You don't want to let them stand perfectly still. You could all stand perfectly still. I bet you could all watch this talk standing exactly still for an hour. But would that be harder than like moving around and pacing for an hour? It would be a lot harder than moving around and pacing for an hour. Standing still is exhausting. So get your users to move. Something is going on here. Okay. Here is from Until You Fall by Shell Games, where they literally bake it into the game mechanics that if you enjoy the game more by not optimizing the fun out of it, by doing a little Wii bowling thing where you just flick your wrist, like if you're like, oh, if you move more, you know what I mean. If you move more, we'll give you more points. Please do that. You will enjoy it more. And you move your head more, which is going to reinforce all that depth. Great. My last point on proprioception is that Logitech came out with a stylus for the Quest. Did you know that? It's cool. I'm excited about it. It makes me want to use my Quest again because I have one and I go into tilt brush and I draw and the ergonomics of holding it differently just feel really good. Maybe I just hate the controllers. I don't know. Anyway, that's it. Moving on. All right, this is the meat and potatoes of the talk. These are all the tricks that you should steal from me and put into your VR designs. And they're not just tricks and specifics. Some of them are more abstract concepts. We got 15 of them. Here we go. One, why are you doing this in VR at all? It's an important question to ask. And normally when it's asked, the answer is something about the user's output. Oh, because I can use their body, because I can get them to punch. We can do a boxing game. We can do a sword slashing game. And a lot of VR that came out really early in the Quest 1 and Oculus Go days, they were really just about waving your arms, which is fine. But I argue that if we look at this simplified idea of a game loop, I drew it, it's fine. If we look at this simplified idea of a game loop, we have the system communicating to the user. User's going to react to that, make a decision, communicate back to the system through some action or output. The video game happens. I see block fall, I push button. I argue that outputs from the system to the user, VR is actually way better at that than inputs from the user into the system. Like the Oculus controllers are really bad. Can we say it? Can we say it? Can we they're not that good. They're not that good. But it's okay. But as a display, oh my God, it's incredible. It's amazing. And the audio on the Valve Index is one of the best audio experiences you can have, period, on any consumer level hardware. It's incredible. So we should really leverage these advantages. My number one favorite VR game, and I've played a lot of VR games, my number one favorite VR game, Tetris Effect. It's just flat Tetris. I use a normal controller. I'm just playing Tetris. Why is this in VR? And the answer isn't my output to the system. The answer is the system's output back to me, where when I land a T-spin, the particles are going to explode, the whale's flying, the sound effect, the music just changed, and like, it feels incredible. The people who've played are nodding, and the people who haven't played are like, it's just Tetris. You had to be there. So if you're able, I mean, Tetris is a game that drives you into flow state. VR is a machine that drives you into flow state. Oh, it's married together. And also now there's like weird music and whales swimming underneath me as I fly over the ocean and like feel good. It's so good. I love it. And this game has nothing innovative, not a single innovative thing from its output of the user into the system. It is, and it shouldn't. It should just be Tetris. All right. Next, core interaction emphasis. Remove every verb that does not matter. That's an easy thing to say, but all of you are going to make a menu and put a menu in your game. Stop it. Remove every verb that does not matter. I don't want more noise. I don't want more things to learn. I want to do one thing very well. So here's knock. It's someone tweeted out, does anyone know anyone who plays Rocket League and does VR things? And like 18 people were like, that guy. It was me. Anyway, so I helped beta test the game Knock, which is an archery game where you like hit a ball and hit the ball into a goal, and it's soccer. And it's good. It's by the Normal, the people who did Half and Half, which is another great VR game. I can just tell you about good VR games. Anyway, this is the menu, which is also the gameplay. That's it. The menu is also the gameplay. Here's Broken Edge. How do you select something in Broken Edge, the sword slashing game? Use your sword. Which means before the user goes into the gameplay, you know if they're going to punch the wall or not. Like they can take a moment to like settle themselves and have a few practice swings before the game even starts, which is probably good. Next, zones of intimacy, which really just means here, near, and far. We want to map different degrees of intimacy together. So make this diagram, put your user in the dead center of the universe, and think of all of the different inputs and outputs to your game. And to your experience. All of them are going to land somewhere in being something that like is interrupting and stealing my attention to being something I can ignore or something that's hidden. Something that is like right inside my reach where I can grab it, or something I have to go move and go get. Something that's viewable near me, or something that's like I have to look around a corner for. All of these different distances, you want to map the importance of something to the different distances. Which is why I like pause menus that are big and floating in the sky, and not pause menus that like appear in front of the game. If you're me. I also don't like menus for many other reasons that I will talk about in the title of the talk. So Rec Room has anyone played Rec Room VR chat? Most social VR games actually really struggle with getting that mapping down because audio is hard and not being constantly harassed by the sounds of 11-year-olds when I'm playing Rec Room is also hard. And that is taking my attention, and I'm trying to like read a tutorial that somebody wrote on their custom map they uploaded, which is weird. So anyway, map your interactions on and consider how close they are to the user in almost every metaphorical and literal sense, and then drive across that. All right, next, diegeses, non-diegetic and diegetic elements. This is a term from theater that means of the world. Something that is diegetic is inside of the world that we're in, like the band playing the background to the music, but they're there on the sinking Titanic, versus just background music that's just not actually on stage with the actors of a play. So in VR, hey, stop making them non-diegetic. Like we're in a reality. You can put the other stuff in the reality with us. And you should. So my example here is a HUD from Halo and a HUD from Halo, but on the gun in the world. You want all of your elements to be of the world and in the world. And that way all of the other space cues and depth cues are happening. And you don't have a heads-up display. Don't do a heads-up display. You don't need a heads-up display. No one wants a heads-up display. Stop it. Here is a menu that could have been a button that you select with a laser pointer, but instead it is this haptic thing that you can touch and move and drag around. From the game Rumble, if I remember correctly. So you can move this around, and it's there. It feels good. It's a memory. It remembers your state. You can also look away from it. So you should do menus that are like this. This is also an example of my next point, which is constrained tangible interfaces. High precision things are hard. Low precision things are easy. Have the system cheat on behalf of the user. Once I am near the handle and I grab, I can move my hand anywhere. I'm not going to let go. And it's just going to interpolate it and like put it on the slider. So here on the left, that's actually, the handle on the left is only selecting one of 3 options. But I have like linear control of it, and it's going to snap to the correct spot. And that allows me to pretend that I have high accuracy and move fast and loose. And it feels really good to just like put it in place and let it like snap the rest of the way, and you don't have to like try and think. So heavily encourage that. Trombone champ would be another example of you play the trombone, obviously. Environment layout tips: stop making rooms, make corners. Corners are great, rooms are bad, because you don't know how big my room is. So either you're going to dynamically resize every element in your game, like they did in Job Simulator, or that's really hard. Why don't instead we just put everything on a solid corner? One wall, a second wall, some other stuff elsewhere. And put all your primary core interactions there. And then you can use all that dynamic sizing information for fun extra things that aren't pivotal to the game actually working. All right. That one's pretty clear. Moving on. Here's a big space. How big is it? I don't know. Here's a big space. How big is it? I could probably guess. Make this. No, sorry. Don't make this. Make this. Put stuff in your scene. Put textures on your surfaces. Don't put, everyone loves a flat cell-shaded UI. Stop it. Stop it. If you're going to do like flat cell-shaded, give them a little bit of like grain texture or something. A little idea of like a paper crimple or something on your materials. And that way we're getting those depth cues, we're getting that scale, we're getting that setup. Next, a thing you need is, hey, I made an incredible magical experience, except Bryce, you're short, so you don't get to enjoy it. How does that feel? Did that feel bad? That feels bad? Hey, but VR is for everyone and can be anything, and we should all be able to enjoy it. And there's no reason that the height of a virtual table or the distances of virtual objects should be the thing that stops you from playing the game. Also, my roommate here at MAGFest is like 6'9". They also can't do a lot of VR projects. They like overreach it. I had one of my students made like an apple picking game in VR, and they're very tall. And their arm was so long they didn't realize they had a bug with their collider around a head, and no one else could play their game, and they didn't even know. That was great. Constrained tangible interactions, diegetic interfaces, but also, the table, you can move it up and down. We love that. We love that so much. Next, locomotion. Locomotion is moving more in your virtual space than you are in your real space, or less for some reason, probably more. So being able to move around, right? Teleportation, sliding around, cockpits, things like that. So for locomotion, what you should do, just don't. Maybe? Maybe don't. No? No? Okay. Okay, well the next best way to do locomotion is from T for God. Has anyone played T for God? Okay, not as many of us. This one's gonna blow your mind. Entire custom engine this developer spent years making that is non-Euclidean. It's sort of refolded around itself. As you go around a corner, there isn't a wall there, there's just more corridor. So in real life, you're moving around a whole bunch. In your space, you're just walking in circles, but in the VR space, you're like going around corridors and ducking under things and climbing through vents. It's incredible. I'll play that one more time. So your head movement is one-to-one from real life to VR, which is the best it gets. There's a broad principle called redirected walking, where we can cheat and move things, and that's everything from non-Euclidean spaces to teleporting stuff behind us to detecting when our eye like saccades are like flickering and then slowly shifting the room a little bit, or when I walk forward, moving the room like a little bit faster than I'm turning in one direction or the other. Like all sorts of little hacks and tricks that all the researchers thought were going to be important when I was in grad school, so I learned about, and they're not important. Anyway, so locomotion. Stop taking video game levels, which are broad. Most video games are like moving a thing through a space. Like you got your platformers, your FBI. Like you're just moving a thing around. So all of our thoughts on level design are like, how do we move around a bunch? But don't. It's the thing that's bad in VR, and where I get motion sick. A few more notes is that users have a lot of heavy, strong preferences about teleportation, so just give them control. Just put it in a setting somewhere. Let them decide if they want to do snap turn or smooth movement or whatever. In teleportation, you can have zone-based, where you teleport to predefined spots, or granular, where you can go wherever you want. I highly, highly, highly encourage you to do zone-based and to not give your user the ability to teleport like a real wall like an inch in front of them and a virtual wall like an inch behind them, and then they just feel trapped and claustrophobic and they're freaking out. Yeah, that happens all the time in granular teleportation. Here's granular teleportation, where they are previewing the room destination, because when you teleport, you're not teleporting your body like we're telling our users we are. We're teleporting the room space, which includes how far away they are from all of the walls you don't want them to smash their faces into. So understanding where the room space is, you can either offload that complexity to the user, which is fine, or better yet, like in Vacation Simulator, you can take control of that. You give them a zone, and then wherever they end up, like if they're a little bit away from the right wall, when they teleport, they'll be that same distance away again. So you can see the destination preview when you teleport is where you are in your room space. It's giving you that same feedback. It's very useful. One more note on teleportation. This is Museum of Other Realities, where you get to teleport into artwork. It's so good. Changing scale during a teleportation. To teleport out, you just go up. Also very good, very intuitive. You just start looking around and eventually you just get out. And their mini-map is a real mini-map, but you can teleport into it, and that will teleport you to the destination in the museum. Very charming, very good, very intuitive, and it is all, the Museum of Other Realities is all VR artwork made in VR for VR. It's great, check it out. And it's multiplayer, and you can, anyway, I'm moving on. Next, toilets. Toilet Ready VR. Can you spin 360 in your chairs right now? Don't. You can't, because there's like a chair. Yeah, okay, thank you, Bryce. There's like a chair back in the way. You can't turn all the way around on a toilet. Accessibility of, oh, I'm losing my signal. The accessibility of things that like don't require me to spin 360 are much more important, or like much more accessible than things that require me to spin around a whole bunch. That was more true when we had cables attaching our headsets to computers. It's less true now, but it's still true. Sometimes I just like to sit on my couch. Next, this isn't game design. This is just design. But I know a bit about color blindness. I know a bit about color theory and how to choose good high contrasty colors. But you know what I don't know about? Your perception of reality. You're the expert in your perception of reality. So I assume, as a designer, I'm a dum-dum, and I offload that. I let the user choose their own colors like you can in Beat Saber, because VR should be more accessible, not less accessible, for everything. So do that. Okay, back to VR things. Floor scale. We've got like seated and standing as the two main modes of VR interaction, and I hate them both because I want to sit on the floor and play with Legos like I did as a kid. And if you want to sit on the floor and play with Legos, which is just a little bit more moving, a little bit more leaning, you can spin around, you can turn around, but you're not being asked to like jump everywhere. So here's me playing Little Cities, and oh, there's my cat, and he's coming up and hanging out with me, and I'm not going to go back to playing this VR game. Yeah, he's a kitty cat. You just sit on your floor. It's great. I love that. Steal that. Make more of those. Slot Car VR is coming out. Coaster Mania is out. Games let you do that. Next, hands. If you look down at your hands in VR and you see a skin color that is not your skin color, that's going to break your immersion. That's going to break your presence. I don't think you should put your hands in VR. I think their default should just be show the controller, because it's the controller. But if you're for roleplay and game narrative reasons, you are going to put hands in VR, put a skin selection in the options, or do what most VR games do and make you a robot. Yeah, or big silly gloves. Sure. Here's BAM. It's a third-person fighting game. The controls are just on the control. You can just look at what are the controls. I just look. They're there. You can just put the controls on the controller. Oh, it's incredible. It's so good. Here's Coaster Mania that shows you the controller with that's the delete button. It's red and has a trash can on it. I can just look at it. It's so good. Here's Knock. That's a two-dimensional JPEG. No, puzzling places. That's a vector art. Is that better? I don't know. The controller's this like abstract blob, and then they're showing me a photo of the controls. You can just point to them. You can just point to the controls in VR. It's incredible. It's so good. Why don't we do that? Even Vacation Simulator, which is like best in class in accessibility and thoughtful design, Alchemy Labs, even they have a photo of the button you're supposed to press. Ugh. I'm holding it, but also you could just show me, just point at it. All right, so don't put if I see any of you ever make a VR game and you put a JPEG of the controls on a flat panel instead of just showing them on the hands, I'm gonna be upset with you. All right, next, make it goopy. This is a quote of Doug Northcook, CEO and designer of Creature, who put out Starship Home. Make it goopy. Doug's design book included the word goopy a number of times. They really wanted to make it reactive and alive. So they recut the trailer, added a VHS effect, and then hired someone from Fiverr who does medical ads to talk about it. So that's cool. I think I might technically be premiering this, but anyway. If you ignore the guy talking at you about how normal the experience is, everything in the game is reactive. Everything's like a little bit moves around. Every time you go near a plant, it like squirms away from you. You can poke the eyeball plant in the eyeball, and it goes. It's so good. It's so charming. It brings so much to the world. Just having all of that secondary animation baked into everything that they're doing. It's really hard to do that, but it's completely worth it. All right, last thing you should steal, brown boxing. This is a coin termed by Shell Games. Brown boxing is gray boxing in normal video design terms, or white boxing. We're using boxes. We are making low fidelity prototypes of our experiences. In something like Unreal, you might do that with cubes. In something like VR, you might do that with cardboard boxes. I expect you to die. They had brown boxed every level, and they figured out so many of the puzzles and the problems of their layout and their placement and their signifiers and all the design elements in real life, and they could prototype and move fast and effectively without having to like write 8 months of code and make it all work. Because that's hard. It's so hard. So they gave a GDC talk on. Check it out. All right, we're good on time. Finally, as promised, why laser pointers are a bad UX device. Here is the Oculus Quest operating system menu. Does it look familiar? we had it already. The Wii solved it. The Wii nailed it, and we copied. What are we doing here? Floating at the flat panels. Okay, so why is this bad? Well, so skeuomorphism, which we love skeuomorphism. Skeuomorphism is taking signifiers and elements of an object that we understand some sort of interactive message about. Ooh, that is a bookshelf because it looks like a bookshelf. That is a calendar. It has different pages because it has the little perforations there, even though it's digital and it doesn't have any of that stuff. We can steal things like drop shadows. Oh, that's a button. It can get pushed backwards, and embossing and things like that. And we can bring them into our screen space and steal those signifiers from real life, borrow them, and our users can intuitively and naturally understand what they're doing. Skeuomorphism is great. So let's take an example. In reality, we have these tabbed things. You may not have ever seen these, but you've probably seen them. All sorts of wonderful verbs here. We got rifling through them. We've got like scanning for something you need. We got finding the perfect thing. And they're a really effective way to organize a bunch of flat things. If we were to borrow from that and go into screen space, I'm going to get it. Again. Come back to me. Hey, there it is. We could borrow that and use it for browser tabs. And we can take the little shape of those tabs and the fact that some are in front of other ones and there's drop shadows there. All of that to sort of indicate to me each of these represents a different thing at a different space. Good job so far to Firefox from 2001 or whatever. Good job so far. So if you were to do that again and you were to say, okay, well, we have this idea of tabs, we can bring that into virtual reality from reality. What should we steal? What should we use? And remember that we're not constrained by like physics or the world. We can like borrow whatever we want and steal whatever we want. All right, so we're designers. You're tasked with like what skeuomorphic thing am I going to steal from to put into virtual reality? And no, wait, no, oh no, no. Okay, so yeah. So we're going to take from reality and we're going to, no. It's a bad Android app. The web browser on the Quest is a flat thing that borrows from normal browser tabs, and it's flat and simplified, and it doesn't even have like drop shadow. What do you do? What is happening here? What do we do? Why would you steal from screens instead of stealing from reality when we're in virtual reality? Look at this interface. Look at how little joy any of the designers of this have had. Like, look at how sad this makes you. This makes me so sad. You know what this could have been? This could have been a giant cylinder that you like paw down like a cat in toilet paper to scroll your web page. This could have been like the tabs could have been like a Rolodex, a giant one in front of you that you flip through. I don't know. You could have done the Bruce Almighty thing. You have nothing but wonder and joy in the world, and you made like a bad Android app. And I know why. It's because the Quest runs Android, and that was very easy. But it does not spark joy. Scrolling in VR. Scroll bars are a way to indicate that there's more content than you can put on the screen. We have more screen. Why are we using scroll bars? Why doesn't it just keep going? Why did we default to making it a bad Android app? Like, oh, welcome to VR. You can do anything you want. And the first time you put on the headset, you're introduced with, it's a bad website. And you go, oh, this isn't a magical device that is designed to transport me to wonderful experiences. This is a phone, but bad. This is like when you use a tablet app and it's bad, like an iPad app that wasn't well designed. That's like, when I got into the Apple Vision Pro, I was like, oh, let's see. Oh, it's an iPad. And I got so sad. There's so many charming things you can do. Fantastic Contraption has like table flipping to switch a menu. It's so good. In the Quest, you ask me to click on things. What does click mean? Click isn't a thing we took from reality, like it's a sound, but like it's something we only took from screen space, only took from websites to understand them, and we brought them in. And you're giving me the mental gymnastics here where like in order to understand pressing a button on the Quest menu, I need to know that my real life hand is holding a controller. But what I see is a virtual hand. That virtual hand is controlled by where I put my fingers on the controller, and that's controlling a laser pointer. And it's like a laser pointer, it's a line. But it's not quite right because it's going to like augment depending on where my eyes are and where my elbow is and where my shoulder is. So then the laser pointer is going to be a dot. That dot's like a computer mouse. And the when I pull the trigger of the thing that's like a gun is like a left click on the mouse. What is the number of conceptual models. Do you know what you could also have just done? I could also just push the button with my hand. Every single extra conceptual model we're adding, I'm going from virtual reality to screens, back to an understanding of reality, and you're adding all of these. It just is unimmersive. It's not fun. It's not great. All right, let's look at the buttons for the Quest operating system. Oh, sorry, that's a screenshot of the iOS app. Let's look at the buttons of the Quest. They're the same buttons. Who copied someone's homework? That can't be right. All right. I'm going to push a button. And when you push a button, here's what I know about buttons. They go back a little bit. All right, computer, zoom and enhance. What happens when I push the button on a Quest? It shrinks a little bit. It shrinks on a 2D plane in order to pretend that it looks kind of like it's moving backwards instead of actually just moving backwards a little bit. How did this happen? Who did this? Who hurt you? Why can't you push the button? It's a button. It has a fake gradient. It has drop shadows. It has rounded corners. But it doesn't, look at this. I can press it with the laser pointer, but I can poke it too. It's a button. You should be able to poke your buttons. You should be able to take all these incredible things about VR and all these incredible depth cues and signifiers and things that bring us presence and immersion, and you shouldn't throw it in the trash can immediately and give me a bad screen. And that's why laser pointers are bad. This is a B-17 bomber, and they made them, and pilots kept crashing them over and over and over again, which is bad. As you can see on this image, the highlighted in red on the left, that is to raise the landing gear, and on the right, that is to open up the wing flaps so the plane slows down. So when you're so when you're landing, you got to put the wing flaps up, but you don't want to put the landing gears up, right? Well, the pilots kept grabbing the wrong switch because they look the same because they're identical. We have a solution to that. Like, people got, I don't know if anyone died. I don't know the story. It's an anecdote, but probably people got hurt because of bad UX, because of bad design. They changed it. Now the landing gear looks like a little wheel, and the wing flaps are big and square and have a different shape and a haptics in my hand that I can sense and I can see and I can feel. And we can do all of these things in VR. We can give us different ways of communicating what different controls do instead of making them all identical, which is good because I don't want to crash a B-17, even if I'm just playing Flight Simulator. So I would say if you're designing VR, go for the top one and not for this image of a Tesla that I included for no particular reason. Okay, I have a little bit of time, but if the main interaction is looking at things, you shouldn't use touchscreens. If I have to look at the road that's not the touchscreen, don't put a touchscreen on it. Also, looking at you, camera designers. Okay. Anyway, so you're telling me laser pointers and screens are understandable, they're recognizable, we don't have to teach it. And I say, so what? You know what else is understandable and recognizable and we don't have to teach it? Steering wheels. Yes. So I made a mouse that you control with the steering wheel. It's real, it works, because that's the joke, you gotta commit to the bit. You know what this isn't? This isn't a good user interface.
Yo, drift that mouse cursor!
You can, and it leaves skid marks on your screen.
Yes!
Thank you. All right. So we can have it both ways. We can leave the quest menu as it is, but behind the quest menu in your home environments where you already let us have different environments and different interactive elements, we can just like have better controls, like the cartridges from Job Simulator, I would say, are better controls. Hey, what thing do you want to do? Grab a little thing, put it in there. Now you're doing that one. Give me my games library as a pile of like bricks that I can sort around me and decide my favorites go over. And use my understanding of spatial awareness and my, how I like to keep my desk nice and cluttered. All right. So what else we do instead of laser pointers? I've got it solved already. Stick. Can I introduce you to the wonder and joy of stick? You all know how to use stick. Stick is great. Stick, you hit with stick, you can hold stick, you can drop it. You already have your hand in the shape of stick. It's like laser pointer, but it's shorter. It's stick. Okay. So anyway, if you open up Figma to make your VR experience, you're doing it wrong, and that is basically my talk. Put depth cues in your environments everywhere. Don't put flat screens in your environments. Make everything build up immersion. That's it. All of the slides, all the references I included are up on this website. And I'll hang out and answer questions. But I think I'm up on time. I don't think I can answer questions on stage.